Alright everyone, let's go ahead and start this little story here. Our first story is about a local legend. Why yes, not quite an international legend necessarily, but maybe more like a tri-state area type of legend. Anyways, this tale is one of decomposing corpses, used sports equipment, and remembering to wait 30 minutes after you've eaten before you went swimming.
One time, I forgot to wait 30 minutes before I went swimming, and I choked on a sardine. Big fat Freddy saved me, though. And then I ate it again.
Yes, sardines. I remember when I used to eat sardines once. I had it with my pizza, and, it was back at Freddy Fazbear's, back when Freddy Fazbear wasn't a thing. Although I guess it still is a thing, it's just, more like a big pizza place, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that, I walked into Freddy Fazbear's Pizzas, and I, asked my good friend Orville, who's always with me when I go do these things. And I asked Orville, I said, hey, wouldn't it be great if I got a, sardine pizza? It was a thing in the 90s, and people would get it all the time. And my good friend Orville, he looked at me with that disgusted look on his face, like I just told him the most disgusting story ever in his life, and he says, why would you want to eat a sardine pizza? And I told Orville, I said, well, it's good, it's got a little bit of, protein in it because it's got the fish, and it's nice and salty, and you can put a little lemon on, and it's delicious. And, Orville looked at me, and he walked away. He didn't say a word. I don't know why he did that. It's a sardine pizza. There's nothing wrong with it. But apparently, it offended Orville so much that he stopped talking to me for 3 days. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Orville's fine. He had some pizza, and it was a great day. Anyways, you see, back to what I was saying. There was this man, or a boy, or a dinosaur-looking thing. Who remembers? Really depends on which movie you're watching. Anyways, apparently, when there's more than one teenage counselor getting together, they focus more on the birds and the bees than we care to admit. Now, in these parts, the birds would be dead, with all the sourdough bread lying around. But this time, dear listener, it was a dead boy. A dead boy who came back to life to listen to his mother. How it's said, as the story goes, he heard voices.
Oh, he did he? Too bad he didn't listen to the one that said, don't drown. That would have been one to listen to, wouldn't it?
Indeed. However, I wouldn't be too hard on him. I bet seeing your mother's head get cut off and then being dragged to hell by a roasted peanut, that's bound to do something to a man after a while. But, anyways, they say this man had no life in his eyes. Others say he's just a kid. A kid who should have paid more attention in swim class than maybe about all the people giving him dirty looks about how ugly he was. Anyways, so this kid, he comes back to life, you see. And, he wants vengeance for, being neglected and being, drowned in the lake. So what does he do? Well, he doesn't go after the children. No, he's not a children killer, But, he goes after all the counselors, but he doesn't do it when, they're having a lunch break or taking a nap. No. He waits till they're doing certain activities, and then he gives a little stabby stab, It's not, sometimes 3 minutes is a little too long to wait, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that, he decided that he was going to, get revenge by waiting until they were their most vulnerable, and then, he would stab them in very intricate places. Sometimes he would put them in, sleeping bags and pick them up and just slam them against the tree, Sometimes he would do that. Something about home movies, too. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Anyway, the point is, the moral of the story, my friends, is this. When you're staying at Crystal Lake, remember to keep your pants on. Because if you don't, Jason's coming to find you. Our next story, my dear friends, is a spooky tale indeed. A tale of a burned madman, dead children, and more than one kind of nightmare.
Sounds sexy.
Ugh, Chica? That's gross. Ugh.
As I was saying, my young robotic friends, a long time ago, there was a creepy old man who wanted to kill a bunch of kids. Which he did, unfortunately.
That sounds really familiar. I bet he was wearing, like a golden Bonnie suit and walked around a pizzeria and stabbed a bunch of kids, right? I know this one.
That story, my little bear friend, that story's still being told. However, this story's about somebody else. They sound familiar, though I know the confusion. Anyways, well, he was killing a bunch of kids, and the parents, they didn't like that very much. So they decided to do what, anybody would do when they are faced against evil. They burn it. Well, they burned him, dead, or alive, or, they burned him from alive. That's extra crispy. with the KFC recipe and everything. Listen, point is, his revenge wouldn't be face to face. No. His revenge was in the dreams, but he would only attack the children that lived on Elm Street. Because Elm Street is where he killed all the other kids. See, it's a whole thing. You killed the kids, and those kids live on Elm Street, and then he kills those kids, and then those kids all survive. They have kids, and then he kills those kids. It was a whole thing. You would think that people would realize that and just move out of that street. But they never did. They just kept having kids, and the kids would end up having dreams, and the dreams would end up killing the kids, and would be this thing. And, they never took down that street. Also, did you know that Elm Street, there's an Elm Street in every city in America? That's weird. Anyways.
Okay, so I guess the moral of the story is, don't have dreams on Elm Street. Right?
No. See, the moral of the story is don't burn the child killers, because the child killers always come back. You think we'd learned that by now? Okay, my dear friends, our third story is about, it's a classic fairy tale, actually. About a hero with a big chin, a girl's name, and a chainsaw for her hand. Some say he's also got something called a broomstick, but we won't talk about that. You see, there was this group of friends who went to a cabin in the woods one day. What they intended to do there was a mystery.
The real mystery is why I wasn't invited to this party.
Oh, great. Well, the party's over, everybody. Go home.
Ooh, Psychic Fredbear brought snacks. Give me the snacks.
I am the snack, baby girl.
Oh, God!
While Helpy's over there gagging to death, let me go ahead and finish the story. Anyway, so the kids, right, they're in the cabin. And, what they were going to do, like I said before, was a mystery, but they ended up doing something much scarier. See, what they did was they found this book called the Necronomicon. And what they decided to do, because, they have the brain of a nut, they decided that they were going to read this book. Well, what happened was when they read this book, some crazy things started happening. For example, one by one, the kids started to deal with some kind of possession. Not the kind of possession where it's like, hey, don't talk to other men, and why don't you answer when I call kind of possession. No. It was more like, this will make you throw up your guts and get touched inappropriately by trees. Exactly.
That's all right, hungry hippo. I'll take it from here. So there I was, staring ugly in the face. Those monsters came at me, my cane, and my very soul. So I offered them Helpy a sacrifice. Here you go.
Wait, what?
I am the magic.
Oh, no, not you.
I will swallow your soul.
Whoa, hey, wait a minute. Put me down. Put me down.
Yum. This will go great with a salad.
Charlie, okay.
Well, isn't that groovy? Well, my friends, I have one last story to tell you tonight. One tale that just might change the way you see things. See, it's about a man who lost everything. His wife, his child, well, even his own health, really. So he did what any good man would do. He sought help. But the ones who were meant to save him, well, they turned their backs instead. They lied and they looked away, and their silence is what signed his death sentence. Most people, would crumble under that kind of pressure. They would just fade into the background and accept it, but not him. No. See, this man was clever. Dangerously clever. The kind of man who understood how things worked. Now that, my friends, is where tragedy becomes invention, and grief, when you mix it with genius, becomes design. He began to build, you see, machines at first, then lessons. His contractions were cruel teachers, a device that locked over the jaw. They called it a reverse bear trap. You had 60 seconds to prove you valued your life, or lost the very face that betrayed it. Those who survived crawled from his games reborn, trembling with gratitude. Those who failed, however, well, let's just say the walls and the floor were painted in their regret. So the man became something else. He became a prophet of pain, preaching salvation through suffering, and his message was simple: be grateful, because the next breath could be your last, and the next mercy may never come. The moral of the story, my friends, is be careful of the ones you turn away, the cries of the ones that you ignore, because they remember that sometimes that grief finds a way to build itself a stage.
I hope hope you enjoyed our little story time. Kept you hypnotized long enough to make sure I kept you right in the front row seat. But see, unlike the man in the story, simple